Princess Lyra stood tall as the royal physician read the report in the grand hall. Her blue skin seemed paler than usual under the harsh lights. The room was silent except for the physician's voice. "Your Highness, after extensive testing, I must inform you that you are unable to bear children with any Novanian male. Your genetic code is incompatible with our species." The words hit Lyra like a physical blow, but she kept her face calm. Around her, the court members began to whisper. Being barren was more than a personal tragedy. It was a political disaster. No children meant no heirs. No heirs meant her family's 2,000-year rule could end. King Terran, her father, raised his hand for silence. His face looked carved from stone. "This is unexpected news," he said. His voice was steady, but Lyra could hear the disappointment. "The council will need to discuss what this means for the line of succession." The head counselor, Mrek, stood up. "With respect, Your Majesty, the laws are clear. A royal who cannot provide heirs must step aside." Lyra watched as the council members nodded in agreement. Her life's purpose, to one day rule and continue her family line, was slipping away. "We will discuss this matter tomorrow," King Terran said. "Princess Lyra has one cycle to accept this news before we begin formal proceedings. One cycle. Just 30 standard days to say goodbye to everything she had trained for since birth." The court was dismissed. Lyra walked out with perfect posture, her head high. Only when she reached her private chambers did she allow herself to feel. She sent away her attendants and stood alone by the window, looking out at the 3 moons of her world. "There must be another way," she whispered to herself. Her computer terminal blinked with a message. The daily report from the Galactic Diplomatic Outpost. Lyra opened it without much interest, but then a section caught her eye. A new species called humans had joined the Galactic Alliance. The report noted their unusual biology and adaptive genetic code. Lyra read more about these humans. They were from a planet called Earth, just recently discovered by deep space explorers. Unlike Novanians, who had carefully managed their genetics for millennia to maintain purity, humans had evolved through random mutations and adaptations. Their genetic code was remarkably flexible. An idea began to form in Lyra's mind. It was outrageous, against tradition, possibly even against the law. But it might be her only chance. She opened a secure channel to her personal assistant. "Prepare my ship. Tell no one. I need to visit the diplomatic outpost. But, Your Highness, the council meeting tomorrow will happen whether I am here or not. I have one cycle before my fate is sealed. I need to explore all options." That night, Princess Lyra left her world in a small, unmarked ship. The diplomatic outpost was only 12 hours away at light speed. There, representatives from hundreds of worlds met, traded, and shared knowledge. And now, humans were among them. Lyra didn't know if her desperate plan would work, but she knew that staying on Novania meant accepting defeat. As her world disappeared behind her, she felt something she hadn't felt since hearing the physician's verdict: hope. The stars streaked past her ship as she headed toward an uncertain future and a meeting that would change everything. The diplomatic outpost floated like a silver wheel in space. Ships from 100 worlds docked at its edges. Princess Lyra arrived in her plain ship with no royal markings. She wore simple clothes and covered her royal birthmark with makeup. No one would know she was a princess here. Lyra walked through the busy halls of the outpost. Aliens of all shapes and colors moved around her. She had studied the layout before coming and knew exactly where to go. The science section was on the lower level, where researchers from different worlds shared their knowledge. She found the human section easily. Their area had strange plants and pictures of a blue and green world. A tall man with light brown skin stood looking at data on a screen. Unlike Novanians, his skin had no blue tint, and his ears were round instead of pointed. "Excuse me," Lyra said in standard galactic language. "Are you a genetics expert?" The man turned and smiled. His eyes widened slightly at seeing a Novanian, as her people rarely left their world. "I am. My name is Daniel. I study cross-species genetics. He gestured to a chair. Please, sit. How can I help you? Lyra sat down carefully. I'm interested in genetic compatibility between species. It's for a research project. Daniel nodded. Fascinating area. Most species can't reproduce together, of course, but the study of why is important for medicine and science. What about humans? Lyra asked. Your species is new to the Alliance. How compatible are you with others? Daniel pulled up some data on his screen. Humans are unusual, actually. Our genetic code is highly adaptive. Earth has millions of species, and we evolved to survive in many conditions. He showed her charts and images that Lyra barely understood, but one thing was clear. Humans were different from the carefully bred Novanians. We've only done preliminary studies with other species, Daniel continued, but humans show surprising compatibility markers with several Alliance races, including Novanians. Lyra tried to sound casual. Daniel looked at her more closely. We haven't done specific studies with Novanians yet. Your people are known for keeping to themselves. Lyra made a decision. What if I told you I have Novanian genetic samples for testing? That would be valuable research data, Daniel said. But why would you have such samples? And why come to me instead of your own scientists? Lyra looked around to make sure no one was listening. The samples are mine. I need to know if I'm compatible with non-Novanians. Understanding dawned on Daniel's face. This isn't just research, is it? No, Lyra admitted. My future depends on finding answers that my world's scientists cannot or will not give me. Daniel was quiet for a moment. I'll help you, but I need to know more. Let's go somewhere private. They went to Daniel's small lab. There, Lyra finally told him the truth about who she was and the verdict that had changed her life. So you see, she finished, if I cannot have children, I lose everything. My position, my purpose, my future. Daniel ran tests on her genetic sample for hours while they talked. Lyra learned that humans valued choice and change, ideas that were foreign to her structured society. Daniel told her about Earth, a world of constant adaptation, while she described Novania's careful order. Finally, the results appeared on his screen. Daniel studied them in silence. Is there any hope? Lyra asked. Daniel looked up, his face serious. According to this, you're right. You can't reproduce with Novanian males. But with humans. He paused. There's a possibility. A small one, but it exists. Lyra felt her heart race. How small? Small enough to be dangerous, large enough to try, if you are willing to risk everything. Their eyes met across the lab, and in that moment, both knew that nothing would be the same again. Lyra and Daniel met every day for a week in his private lab. They ran more tests and talked for hours about what their findings meant. The test results remained the same. There was a small but real chance that Lyra could have a child with a human, specifically with Daniel. I need to be clear about something, Daniel said as they looked at the latest results. Even if this works, the child would be half human. It would be different from full Novanians. Lyra nodded. I understand. But in the eyes of our law, having any child would preserve my position. Is that all this is to you? A way to keep your royal status? Daniel's voice was quiet but serious. Lyra looked down at her blue hands. At first, yes. But now, she struggled to find the right words. Now I want this for more reasons. I want to prove the royal doctors wrong. I want to show my people that our old ways of thinking about genetics are limited. Daniel smiled. That's a better answer. He paused. There's something else we need to discuss. If we go forward with this plan, what would my role be? Would I ever see the child? This was the hardest question. Lyra had been avoiding it. If I return to Novania pregnant, I cannot say the father is human. Not yet. The conservative nobles would call the child impure. They might even try to harm us. She looked directly at Daniel. I would need to hide the truth for a while. So you want me to give you a child and then stay away? Daniel frowned. Not forever, Lyra said quickly, just until the child is born and accepted. Then, perhaps, we could find a way to introduce you as a diplomatic connection. Daniel walked to the window of his lab and looked out at the stars. I've never thought about being a father. On Earth, having children is a choice, not a duty. On Novania, it is the highest duty for royalty, Lyra said. But I understand if you refuse. Daniel turned back to her. I haven't refused. I just need to know that this isn't only political for you. A child deserves more than that. Lyra stood and walked to him. In the past week, I've learned more about life outside Novania than in all my years before. I've learned about Earth's history, about human adaptability. She hesitated, then touched his hand. I've learned about you. The touch sent a strange warmth through both of them. Novanian skin was cooler than human skin, and the contrast was striking. If we do this, Daniel said, we need time to make sure it's right. Not just the science, but us. Over the next 3 weeks, Lyra and Daniel grew closer. They shared meals and stories. He taught her Earth games like chess. She taught him Novanian poetry, the physical differences between them. His warm skin, her blue complexion, his round ears, her silver eyes, became familiar, even beautiful to both. When they finally decided to try for a child, it was no longer just a royal arrangement. Something deeper had grown between them. A month later, Lyra ran the test herself in Daniel's lab. The result was clear. She was pregnant with a human Novanian child, the first of its kind. That night, they sat together looking at the stars from the outpost window. How will you explain this to your father? Daniel asked. I will tell a partial truth, that I found a genetic match from another species. She placed a hand on her stomach. Once the child is born and healthy, I will reveal the rest. Daniel covered her hand with his. I'll wait for your signal. But know this, no matter what your people say, this child has 2 parents. Nothing will keep me from being part of its life. Lyra nodded, tears in her silver eyes. I must return to Novania tomorrow. The time given by my father is almost up. They both knew the hardest part was just beginning. Lyra's return to Novania caused an immediate stir. She had disappeared with little explanation and returned with extraordinary news. Standing before the royal court, her head held high, she made her announcement. I am with child, she declared. The grand hall erupted in chaos. Nobles jumped to their feet, shouting questions and accusations. The royal physician, who had declared her barren, turned pale blue with shock. King Terran silenced the room with a single raised hand. Princess Lyra, explain yourself. How is this possible when our finest doctors declared no Novanian male could father your child? Lyra had prepared for this moment. Your Majesty, you are correct that no Novanian male is compatible with me. However, I discovered that my condition is specific to our species. During my absence, I visited the diplomatic outpost and found genetic compatibility with another spacefaring race. Whispers rushed through the court. Such a thing was unheard of in their long history. This is outrageous, shouted Councillor Mrek. A royal carrying an alien child. It goes against all our traditions. The king's face remained unreadable. Who is the father, Lyra? Which species? I claim diplomatic immunity on that question, Father, Lyra said firmly. Our laws protect the privacy of both parents in cases of royal births. I ask that you respect this ancient right. The king's eyes narrowed. Very clever, daughter. But this must be verified. Royal physician, you will examine the princess immediately. Over the next few days, Lyra underwent extensive testing. The royal doctors confirmed her pregnancy but were baffled by what they found. The genetic scans showed the child was indeed hers, but the paternal DNA matched no known Novanian pattern. More surprisingly, the child was developing faster than any Novanian fetus they had studied. The brain activity is remarkable, one doctor reported to the king while Lyra listened. And the cellular structure shows unusual resilience. Whatever the other species is, it has created something extraordinary. The Royal Council remained divided. Some saw Lyra's pregnancy as a trick to maintain her position. Others feared what a half-alien child might mean for their pure bloodline. A few, however, were curious about the potential of such a unique heir. As weeks passed, Lyra's pregnancy became increasingly unusual. Her body temperature rose, alarming the doctors until they realized it was adapting to support the child's warmer biology. The baby moved more actively than Novanian fetuses, and scans showed it developing features never seen in their species. "The child has 5 fingers instead of our normal 4, reported a confused doctor. "And its blood contains elements we cannot identify." King Terran visited Lyra privately in her chambers after this report. "Daughter, I have respected your right to privacy, but this situation grows more complex daily," he said. "The council presses me to demand the truth. Half believe you've somehow created this child artificially." Lyra placed her hand on her growing belly. "Father, this child is natural but unique. I found a solution to our problem that no one thought possible." "And the father? Will he claim rights to the child? To our throne?" "He is a good man," Lyra said carefully. "He has agreed to remain distant until we know the child is accepted here." The king looked troubled. "Royal spies report you spent significant time with a human scientist at the outpost. Is this child part human, Lyra?" Lyra met her father's gaze steadily. "The child is your grandchild, royal by birth. The rest can wait until it's born." King Terran sighed deeply. "I hope you understand what you've started. Our people have maintained genetic purity for 10,000 years. This will change everything." "Perhaps," Lyra said, "change is exactly what Novania needs." As she approached her final month, much earlier than a normal Novanian pregnancy, both Lyra and the kingdom prepared for the birth of a child that should have been impossible. The Palace Medical Center was filled with the kingdom's best doctors and scientists. After only 7 months, far shorter than the normal Novanian pregnancy of 12 months, Lyra had gone into labor. The king himself stood outside the birthing chamber, his face showing rare concern. Inside, Lyra fought through pain unlike anything described in royal medical texts. Novanian births were typically calm and controlled, but her body struggled with a hybrid child. "The baby's core temperature is too high," one doctor said in alarm, "and its heart rate is nearly double normal parameters. Princess, you must push harder," the head physician instructed. "The child is caught between 2 biological systems." Lyra's silver eyes flashed with determination. "I will not lose this child," she gasped, summoning all of her strength. After hours of difficult labor, a cry filled the room, louder and stronger than any Novanian infant's first sound. The doctors moved quickly, checking the baby boy with a mixture of scientific curiosity and medical concern. "He's stable," the head physician said, sounding surprised. "But his vital signs are unlike anything in our records." When they placed the child in Lyra's arms, she saw immediately what would raise questions. The boy had blue skin like a Novanian, but with a warmer undertone. His ears were slightly rounded at the tips rather than sharply pointed. Most striking were his eyes, silver like hers, but with a ring of brown around the pupils, a clear mark of his human father. "His name is Leo," she announced when the king was finally allowed to enter. King Terran looked down at his grandson with guarded expression. "He looks different." "He is different," Lyra said proudly. "He is the future." The first weeks were tense. Royal physicians monitored Leo constantly, documenting every unusual trait. His body temperature ran several degrees warmer than Novanian normal. He grew at an accelerated rate. Most surprisingly, his brain activity showed patterns never seen in Novanian children. When Leo was 3 months old, disaster struck. He contracted a common Novanian childhood illness, one that normally caused mild fever, but was easily treated. In Leo, the disease triggered a dangerous reaction. The royal doctors worked desperately to save him as his temperature soared and his breathing became labored. Lyra remained by his side, refusing to leave even as the doctors told her to prepare for the worst. His mixed genetics make treatment difficult, they explained. The medicine that would help a Novanian child might harm his human side. But on the third day of the illness, Leo's condition suddenly improved. His fever broke, and tests showed the virus completely gone from his system. The doctors were baffled. "It's as if his body created its own cure," one specialist said in amazement. "This immunity response doesn't exist in our species." Word of the miraculous recovery spread through the palace. Some began to whisper that the mixed-blood prince might carry special strengths unknown to pure Novanians. This whisper reached the ears of the king's spies, who had continued investigating Lyra's time at the diplomatic outpost. They presented their findings to King Terran privately. That night, the king came to Lyra's chambers while she rocked Leo to sleep. "A human father," he said without preamble. "Daniel, the Earth scientist. That is the truth, isn't it?" Lyra looked up, unafraid. "Yes, Daniel is Leo's father." "Why him? Why humans?" "Because they adapt. Father, their entire history is one of change and survival. Their DNA reacts differently than ours." She looked down at her sleeping son. "And because I came to care for him, not just his genetic code." The king was silent for a long moment. "The council will be divided. Many will call for both of you to be banished." "And what will you call for?" Lyra asked quietly. Before the king could answer, a message alert sounded on the royal communication system. The diplomatic outpost was reporting an unauthorized departure of a human scientist named Daniel, heading directly toward Novania. "It seems," the king said with a raised eyebrow, "that the father is coming to meet his son, regardless of our traditions." Daniel's ship approached Novania without proper clearance or diplomatic permission. 6 royal defense vessels surrounded him before he reached the atmosphere. "Unidentified craft, you are entering restricted Novanian space," came the stern message. "State your purpose or be turned away by force." Daniel's voice was calm but determined. "My name is Daniel of Earth. I request an audience with Princess Lyra regarding a matter of great personal importance." The guards were about to refuse when a royal override signal cut through their communication. King Terran himself appeared on the screen. "Allow the human to land," he ordered. "Escort him directly to the palace." The news of a human visitor spread quickly through the capital. Novanians lined the streets, eager to see this alien who dared to enter their world uninvited. Most had never seen a human before. Daniel was brought to the grand hall where the full royal council had gathered. Lyra stood beside her father's throne, holding baby Leo. When Daniel entered, his eyes went immediately to the child. "Is that?" he began, his voice catching. "Your son," Lyra finished. "His name is Leo." The council erupted in shocked whispers. Councillor Mrek leaped to his feet. "This is an outrage. The princess has polluted the royal bloodline with alien DNA," he shouted. "Both she and this hybrid child should be removed from succession." "Silence," King Terran commanded. He turned to Daniel. "You have violated our laws by coming here without permission. Why risk such offense?" Daniel stood tall. "With respect, Your Majesty, I learned that my son was born. Nothing would keep me from him. Not space, not laws, not even the anger of a king." The king studied Daniel carefully. "What claim do you make on this child?" "I claim the right to know him, to be part of his life," Daniel said. "I make no claim to your throne or titles." "The child is not fully Novanian," one counselor argued. "Perhaps that is his strength," a new voice said. The royal physician stepped forward with data in his hands. "We have completed our studies of Prince Leo. The results are remarkable." The physician displayed images showing Leo's development compared to normal Novanian children. "The prince's hybrid DNA has created something unprecedented. His immune system is stronger than any in our medical records. His brain shows activity in regions dormant in our species. Most significantly, The genetic flaw that made Princess Lyra unable to reproduce with our kind has been completely absent in the child's DNA. Daniel nodded. It's not surprising. Humans evolved through adaptation. Our genetic code is built to overcome challenges and incorporate beneficial traits. Are you suggesting, the king asked slowly, that human DNA has improved our royal line? I'm suggesting, Daniel replied. That difference isn't weakness. Leo represents the best of both worlds. The royal physician continued. Based on our projections, Prince Leo will develop abilities beyond normal Novanian capacity. His lifespan may exceed our own. And most importantly, he will not carry the genetic limitations that affected Princess Lyra. Lyra stepped forward, still holding Leo. Father, council members, for generations we have protected our genetic purity, believing it made us stronger. But look at my son. His mixed heritage hasn't weakened him. It has made him extraordinary. She placed Leo in Daniel's arms. The human looked down at his son with wonder, touching the child's blue skin and slightly pointed ears. Leo reached up with tiny fingers and grabbed his father's hand. He has your eyes, Daniel whispered. And your stubborn nature, Lyra replied with a smile. He refused to give up during his illness, just like you refused to stay away. The king watched this exchange carefully. The council remained divided, some members horrified, others intrigued by the scientific possibilities. The question remains, King Terran said finally. What place does this child, and his father, have in our world? King Terran stood on the palace balcony overlooking the capital city. Behind him, the royal council argued loudly, their voices carrying through the open doors. For 3 days, they had debated the fate of Princess Lyra, her human mate Daniel, and their child Leo. The ancient laws are clear, Councillor Mrek insisted. Only pure Novanian blood can inherit the throne. But the child carries the royal genetic markers, argued another councillor, and his abilities surpass our own. Surely this is evolution, not contamination. The king turned away from the view and walked back into the chamber. The room fell silent. I have made my decision, he announced, one that considers both tradition and the future of our people. All eyes focused on the king as he moved to stand before Lyra, Daniel, and baby Leo. For 10,000 years, we Novanians have prided ourselves on genetic purity. We believed it made us superior. The king looked at his grandson in Daniel's arms. But we have also grown stagnant. Our population declines. Genetic disorders increase. Perhaps it is time for new strength. Councillor Mrek stepped forward. Your Majesty, you cannot mean to accept this half-breed as a legitimate heir. Watch your tongue when speaking of my grandson, the king said sharply. I have reviewed all the medical data. This child possesses strengths our people need. He turned to address the full council. I hereby recognize Prince Leo as my legitimate heir, through Princess Lyra. Furthermore, I recognize the human Daniel as his father and member of the royal family. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Such a declaration was unprecedented. Additionally, the king continued, I am ordering our laws regarding interspecies unions to be reviewed. If human Novanian genetics can produce such beneficial results, we must reconsider our isolation. Half the council looked horrified, while the others showed cautious approval. The king's word was final, but implementing such changes would not be easy. That evening, in a private ceremony, Lyra and Daniel formalized their union according to both Novanian and human traditions. Daniel placed a ring on Lyra's blue finger, while she wrapped the traditional royal band around his wrist. This is just the beginning, Lyra told Daniel as they watched Leo sleep in his crib. Many still oppose us, but many support us too, Daniel replied. I've already received messages from other Novanians asking about human Novanian compatibility. Over the next 2 years, Leo's development continued to amaze everyone. He walked and spoke earlier than Novanian children. His mind grasped concepts quickly. Most importantly, his existence opened doors between humans and Novanians that had never existed before. More mixed couples came forward. More hybrid children were born, all showing the same enhanced traits as Leo. Scientists across the galaxy began studying what they called genetic complementarity between the two species. On Leo's third birthday, King Terran held a public celebration. Thousands gathered in the central plaza to see the young prince. Humans from the diplomatic outpost were invited as honored guests. "Look at them all," Daniel said as he and Lyra watched the mixed crowd from the palace steps. Humans and Novanians together. Who would have thought it possible? Lyra squeezed his hand. It's what happens when we question old beliefs, when we dare to try something new. Leo ran up to them, his blue skin glowing with health, his eyes, silver rimmed with brown, bright with intelligence. "Father, Mother, Grandfather says I can announce the new school." The new school was the king's latest project, an academy where young Novanians and humans could study together, learning from both cultures. As Leo stood before the crowd, small but confident, Lyra felt a surge of pride. Her son represented everything she had hoped for. The strength of Novanian tradition combined with human adaptability and innovation. "Today we celebrate not just my birthday," Leo said in his clear voice, "but a new beginning for all of us." The crowd cheered, humans and Novanians together. A new era had begun, all because a princess refused to accept the limitations others had placed on her.